Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Stitch Sessions. This week we are diving into something really exciting. We're going to be working on the Alpine purse, and this is a design that I have been very excited to share with you all. It is using the Alpine Stitch, and it is a great little over-the-shoulder bag. It's very boho in style, and it's just got this beautiful texture to it. And there's a couple of little things involved, so it is a little bit more time-consuming only because of the added details involved in creating the bag. But the stitch itself, if you know your double crochets and are a little bit comfortable with the front post double crochets, you should be a-okay. We also dive into a little bit of Tunisian crochet with the strap. So there's a lot of really cool elements involved in this project. It is broken up into several videos. So there are 3 parts to this bag. And really and truly the easiest part is just creating the body of the bag, which is doing the Alpine stitch and just creating the whole length of the bag. What will take a little bit more patience is seaming up the sides and then creating our handle. And as you can see here, we've got this really pretty Lion Brand yarn running through. This is done using 2 yarns held together. And I created some little eyelets here to add a little ribbon detail in there. And this really was a delight to work on. It did take a little bit longer, but I'm very, very happy with the results, and I am super excited about sharing this with you guys. So this is a fantastic project. If you've got a little bit of time on your hands and you want a really fun boho type style bag for the spring and summer, this is for you. So let's get all of our materials together and let's start stitching. Okay guys, so excited to get started on this project, and most especially because of this fabulous yarn that I had picked up a little while ago. It's called, it's Lion Brand's The Summer Nights yarn, and the reason why I love it so much is it's got this really pretty, just like this tinsely effect that's going through it, and these are like such pretty. It's a very light variegated pastel-y color. Now you will notice this is an extremely fine yarn. It is considered a one weight, a super fine. And they recommend using a 3.5 millimeter hook. Now, what I'm going to do is, because I'm making a bag, I am actually going to use one of my other favorite yarns, and that is the Bernat Home Dec yarn. It is considered a bulky size 5, and it is 72% cotton and 28% nylon. And what I'm doing with this project is I'm using this for the strength and fortification, because it's going to be a shoulder bag. But I am going to pair it. So I'm going to use 2 yarns. I'm going to be working with 2 yarns at the same time. And I'm going to use this one at the same time. So there will be this faint, really pretty pink and purple and some greens in there, mint greens with a bit of sparkle running through it. It's going to look so, so pretty. And so for this, now they usually recommend using an 8 millimeter hook for this. Whenever I work with the Bernat Maker yarn, I always use a 6 millimeter hook. Okay, there we go. So I can use a 6 millimeter hook. And I use a 6 millimeter because I crochet fairly medium tension. And I do like my stitches to sit a little bit snugger together. So this is a little bit of a tighter stitch with this one, and it works just fine for me. So usually this is the one I use. And as always, you're going to need a pair of scissors and, of course, a darning needle at the end for sewing in all of your ends. So let's get started on this fabulous bag. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make sure to keep a regular tone or tension with my 2 yarns. So I will be working with the bulky 5 right along this super fine 1 yarn. Okay, so when I create my slip knot, which is how we're going to begin this project, I am going to treat these 2 pieces as 1. So I'm going to create my slip knot. Okay, and our foundation chain row for this particular bag, I chained a total of 50 chains. So if you want a wider bag, then you would chain more. I would recommend chaining an even number, and then which will work out great for the tricot stitch that we're going to use later on. So you can make it slightly smaller, like if you want it to be more of a clutch or a handbag, but the 50 chains works out great for a shoulder bag. Okay, so again, and I've said this in the past, if you are a tight crocheter and we are working with a 6mm hook here, you may want to do your initial chains in a 6.5, even a 7 might help, and then come back to the 6 once you're done your chains. So we will proceed to chain 50 chains, and you should be familiar with the chain stitch, and I will leave a description. Sorry, I will leave a link to our chain tutorial in the description box, just in case you need a little bit of a refresher. And you can see now, as I hold up that chain row, how pretty that is, just bringing this, the beigey color, the creamy color of the Bernat is just coming to life with that little fine tinsel yarn running through it. It just so pretty. Okay guys, go ahead and I'll meet you at the end of 50 chains. At the end of 50 chains, you just want to make sure that they are nice and consistent and even and not twisted. So you'll have something that looks like that. And again, I just love that sparkle that's running through it. Okay, after 50 chains, what you're going to do is you're going to find the second chain from the hook. So it's not this one, it is this one here. And if my camera would just focus, there we go. And so what we're going to do is we're going to insert, and we are going to create a single crochet. Okay. And that is what we're going to do into each and every single chain across the way here. So you're going to just directly insert your hook, make sure that you pick up both the yarns as you go. So you're treating this as one piece of yarn. And every time you insert your hook, make sure that, you are going through both. Okay, so you've got a bulky 5 and a fine weight 1 working together here. Okay, and that is all you're going to do all the way to the end is one single crochet into each and every single stitch. So this is row 1 of your pattern. At the end of row 1, your work will look something like this. And of course, it will stretch out a little bit. So these are your 50 chains. Single crochets worked into each chain. I have 1 left. So you are going to work right into that very last one. And of course, at the end, you should always count to double check you have the right amount of stitches. Okay, so your work now is looking something like that. Super pretty. So we are now going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to turn our work. For row 2, we're going to be working 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way to the end. So row 1 were single crochets, row 2 is double crochets. Okay, now remember, this is not to be worked into because it's the base of this stitch here, which is considered a double crochet. So you'll yarn over, insert your hook, and pull through 3 loops on the hook, pull through the first 2, pull through the second 2. And there you have a double crochet. So technically the chain 3 counts as 1, and this one goes into the next stitch. And this is what we're going to do into each stitch all the way to the end of this row, which is row 2. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet you at the end of row 2. I'm coming up to the end of round 2, and you can really see how that fine yarn working through the thicker one is really adding some beautiful, lovely hints of color and texture. So I'm just finishing up row rounds. I've been doing a lot of projects with rounds. So I'm going to do, so that is the last stitch here. So I'm going to do a double crochet into that. And remember, there's a chain 1 here that counts as a single crochet. So I want to make sure that I work into that. So I'm going to pull that through here and then make sure to catch that other loop there. And finish off the double crochet. Okay, so that's nice and even. So that is the end of my row 2. Now, row 3 is actually a repeat of row 1. And in fact, this is the way it's going to continue to go. It's going to go single crochets, double crochets, single crochets, double crochet, 1 row of each. The difference is the next time we come to a double crochet, we're going to do something just slightly different, and that will be the repeat. So we're going to, for row 3, we're going to repeat row 1. So you will chain 1, turn your work, and you're going to go into the very next stitch. So remember, this is the base of this chain 1. And in fact, one thing you want to be aware of when you're doing things like single crochets, when you do that chain 1, try not to chain too tightly because a lot of times that stitch gets lost. And then we're going into the very next stitch to do a single crochet. And this is our next row, is 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way across. So this is a repeat of row 1. Coming up to the end here, and I'm going to double crochet. And remember that chain 3, we have to double crochet into the top of the chain 3. Okay, so your work now looks like this. And we are now going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. So what we're going to do now is we are going to do a double crochet into the very next space, which is this one right here. So you will always have a chain 3 on one end and a double crochet in the very end, just a regular double crochet. And we're starting with a regular double crochet into the first stitch. Next, what we're going to do is you're going to continue doing double crochets, but now you're going to alternate between a regular double crochet and a front post double crochet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the previous row that had double crochets, which was row 2. We're going to insert our hook behind the post of the double crochet. So you'll notice it pushes it forward. You will yarn over and then pull through and loosely bring up the loop nice and tall because now we've gone down another row. After that, you'll yarn over, you'll pull through the first 2 loops like you normally would in a double crochet, keeping these loops fairly loose, because remember, we have to reach to the height of 2 rows above. Then you'll yarn over and pull through 2. And that is what the tricot stitch looks like. It's a really pretty effect. So it's using the post of the stitch 2 rows below, which is always going to be the double crochet row. Okay? Next, what you're going to do is find the very next stitch. So this post belongs to this stitch here. So the very next stitch, an easy way to do this, find your next double crochet and follow it up. So the stitch of the single crochet here, you're going to work a regular double crochet into that stitch. Okay. So if I do that again, I'm going to yarn over, find the next post, which is right here, pull through nice and loose, yarn over and yarn over. So we'll do that again. Yarn over, you're going to find the post of the very next double crochet and you want to push that forward. So make sure that when you insert between the stitches, you don't come back up this way. You want to actually come out the other side like you're weaving that in, okay? You'll yarn over and you'll pull through, but you want to keep it nice and relaxed so you can pull up a bit. So the loop is quite tall, because remember you have to meet up the height of the next row, because we're currently in row 4, okay? You'll yarn over, pull through, and you'll yarn over and finish like a regular double crochet. So that creates this nice braided looking loop here. And it has such a really cool effect. So every other stitch, you're going to do a regular double crochet into the top of that stitch. So the next post would be here. Above that is the single crochet stitch. And we want to just do a regular double crochet into that. Okay, and if you're ever unsure, just turn to the back. Okay, so the regular stitch is worked in. The front post is skipped this stitch. That's a regular stitch, that's a front post, because remember it's worked into the post of the front. So we just worked a regular stitch so you can see it's worked there. So if you ever see 2 stitches skipped or no stitches skipped, then you know you made a boo-boo there, okay? And this is the repeat. So the pattern will continue to go like this. Currently we're in the double crochet row. So this is row 4, if you start from the top. And so the repeat will be row 4 and row 3. Row 3, row 4, row 3. So that means after this, after we do a regular double crochet, then a front post double crochet, regular double crochet, front post, you do it all the way to the end. You will chain 1, turn your work, and then we work another row of single crochets. And then you chain 3 and repeat again. So what I am going to do is I'm going to repeat row 3 and row 4 9 more times. This should give me a total height of my bag of 10 inches. And how do I know that? Because when I did row 1 and row 2, I could see that that gave me approximately 1 inch. And so I'd like a depth of 10 inches for my bag. Okay. So you might want a deeper bag. So you might want to do a repeat of 12 more rows or 14 or 15, however you like. But I am going to do 10. And if you liked to have your bag look exactly like mine, then I recommend repeating this 9 more times. So for now, go ahead and finish this pattern, and I will meet you at the end of this row so I can show you just basically how to move on to the next, to repeat row 3. Okay, so we're coming up to the end of row 4, and now your work is really starting to take shape. It's got this gorgeous texture, and the other thing I love about this stitch is if you turn it upside down, it looks like little rosebuds, which is super pretty. Okay, so at the end here, I've got a post and a chain 3. No, that's actually a double crochet. So remember at the beginning, we did a chain 3. There we go. Chain 3 and a regular double crochet. So that means we have 2 double crochets on each end. So that works out perfectly. So I'm just going to do a regular double crochet into the stitch, not into the post. And then I'm going to yarn over and do another one into the very top of that stitch there, so that I will have my work flanked by 2 regular double crochets on each side. There we go. Okay, so basically, as I said before, you're just going to keep repeating row 3 and 4. So for row 3, going back to row 3, you're just going to do your chain 1 and turn your work. And remember, we don't work into that base of that there. We go into the very next one. And just nice and simple, we go across the row and we single crochet into each stitch across. So now you can really tell there is a front and a back part to your work. Okay. So the single crochets help us work across so that we can always keep the tricot pattern facing your front. So this is not a reversible pattern. Okay, so go ahead and do your single crochets, and I just want to get you started repeating row 4 again, just so you can see where the tricot stitches will sit in the next row. Here we are coming up to the end of the row 3 repeat. So that is my last stitch there. I'm going to single crochet, and then I've got the top of my chain 3. So I just find that top of the chain 3 and I single crochet there. Okay, so when I turn my work now, this is what it looks like. Doesn't that look amazing? I love this texture. It's so pretty. So we are now going to repeat row 4, but here's where things differ a wee bit. We're going to chain 3 to start, 2, 3, and this time we're going to work into these double crochets. So you always go 2 rows down, so the row below the single crochet row. But this time I want to tricot into each alternating stitch. Okay, so this time when I yarn over, I'm going to insert my hook into the very first post, which is right here. Okay, so then when I yarn over and pull up nice and loose and pull through 2 and pull through 2, now that is falling on a diagonal. So now where the previous one was, that's the one that I am going to do a regular crochet, double crochet into. Okay, so I'm going to insert, pull through, and I was just checking the back there to make sure it was on the right stitch. Okay, so again, just follow the last one and up to the top, there's that stitch. So I'm going to do that again so you can get the real perspective of how this pattern is going to be created. So you'll yarn over, instead of going into the front post that's already been worked, you want to find the post that has not been worked, the one next to it. So see, it's nestled in between these two. Yarn over, stretch it nice and tall, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Okay, so now you're going to see an alternating effect. And I'll do a couple more so you can really see. So I'm going to yarn over. This time I'm just going to do a regular double crochet into the very next stitch. Okay, and then I'll yarn over and find the next post, which is this one right here. And again, keep this, when you pull this one up, keep it nice and loose. You want to create it a bit taller so you can reach up to the next row there and resolve like a regular double crochet. Now a regular into the top of the next stitch. Pull through 2 and pull through 2. So now you should really be able to see how it's creating this lovely textured pattern here. Okay, so as you can see, so it's meant to alternate, and that's what will happen with consecutive rows. So you're going to finish this off, and so in this row your second last stitch will be the tricot stitch here, and then you'll have one double crochet on its own. Then you'll repeat row 3, which is a row of single crochets, and when you go to repeat row 4, you will come back to doing a chain 3, a double crochet, regular double crochet, and then a front post. So I hope that makes sense. So every other row, you will have 2 regular double crochets flanking each row, and then every other one you'll have only 1. So this one had 2 regulars, this one had 1. Okay, so I'm going to set you loose, gang, and I will meet you at the end of my 10 row repeat. Okay guys, so as you can see, I've done more than my 10 rows. As I went along, I decided to change just the look of the design I wanted. The pattern is still the same. So we still need 1 row of single crochets and then 1 row of front post double crochets in alternating stitches. So exactly how I just left you, that's what's happening here. But instead of repeating it for 10 rows, what I did is I created the stitches so that the Alpine or the tricot stitch was alternating only twice. Then I broke it up by doing 3 rows of single crochets. And then I began again with the Alpine stitch or the tricot stitch, and I repeated this for 10 rows. Now that means 10 rows in total. So that includes the single crochet row, the double crochet row, single crochet, front post, yada, yada, yada. So I wanted to create a design where I would see this stitch repeating twice, a gap, and then I would see it repeat 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And then I did it again, 3 rows of single crochets, and then just that thinner strip of the Alpine stitch. So you can see that the design, now you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So you've got a narrower strip, a thicker strip in the middle, and a narrower strip. Okay, and so I've actually done that for quite a bit. So this folded in half is now my bag. Okay, so it's actually fairly wide. Okay, and so that design, the 2 rows of Alpine 4 and 2 is on this side. If I turn it over, it is the same thing there. So what is going to be the bottom of my bag is actually 9 rows of single crochet stitches. So that will create a little bit of a flatter type of bottom scenario. So if I unfold the whole thing, so I basically just did this as one long piece. So you can see that there. Okay, so that's the way I wanted the design of the pattern to look. Okay, so you can really see that's quite a really pretty stitch there. Okay, and so now I've got the desired depth of the bag that I want. So if I fold this in half, now what I want to do is I want to start closing up the sides. And I'm going to do this bag a little bit different than I've done some of the bags in previous. And I'm going to stitch up the sides and cinch in the tops before I work on the handle. Sometimes I've done bags where I work the handle as I go, but I'm going to take a slightly different approach to this one. So I'm going to grab my hook and I'm going to pick up, whoops, wrong side, pick up where I left off here. And before I actually, so some people would actually, sorry, I've got 2 strands here I've got to work with. Some people would actually maybe whip stitch, and that's okay too, but I'm going to take a slightly different approach. So I've just finished this row of single crochets, and now what I'm going to do is I am going to come back around this way, but I'm going to do some decrease stitches because I want the top to cinch in just a wee bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 1, and then I am going to go back into that same stitch, the bottom of the first stitch. So a lot of times we would have skipped that one because that's the base, but I'm actually going to go into that one and pull up a loop, but then I'm going to go into the next one, insert, and pull up a loop. So that means I'm going to have 3 loops on my hook now. So with 3 loops on the hook, I'm then going to yarn over and pull through all 3. And what that does is that stitches 2 stitches together. So that's what we call a decrease. Okay. So you're going to continue doing all single crochet stitches for this round, but we are going to do a decrease in every 7th stitch. Okay, so you're going to continue on into the next stitch. So we have 1 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. And then into the 7th stitch, we are going to pull through and then connect it to the next stitch. So you pull through again. So let me just undo that. So what we're doing is you're going to start the stitch like a regular single crochet, but you're not going to resolve it. You will then go into the next stitch, pull through. So again, you'll have 3 loops on your hook. And now you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 to resolve that stitch. And now you can actually see a little bit clearer how it snuggles these 2 stitches into one. Okay. And then we will continue doing 1 single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. And then in stitch 7 and 8, we will do a decrease. Okay. And as you come up to the end, we will have exactly 6 stitches left after we do our last decrease, and we're just going to single crochet right to the end. That's our last official stitch, and then we've got a chain 1 in here, so just make sure you don't miss that. So insert your hook, pull through, and I always like to solidify by catching 2 loops there, and pull through. Okay, so you can actually see it's already starting to bunch in a little bit, which is exactly what I want. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to continue to work down the side of the bag. Okay, and we're not actually cinching it shut just yet. Stitching, I should say, stitching it shut. Just grab a bit more yarn here. So now we're going to work into the sides of these stitches. Now these are all double crochets, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 1, And then I'm going to do a half double crochet into the same stitch here. See that there? I'm going to yarn over and insert. And this is just going to help me come around the corner here. Okay. Now, a lot of times if you're working single crochets and maybe even half double crochets, we would usually recommend doing 2 stitches into the sides of these. I, however, am going to only do 1 stitch into the side of each stitch because I do want a certain amount of bunching in along the sides of this bag as well. So, and I want this bunching in to be a bit more prominent. So I am actually going to look for the base of each of these double crochet stitches. So these loops here would be considered along the side. The base would be wherever I had started that stitch. So you see the base of this stitch is right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the base there, and do a half double crochet stitch. Okay, that means you will pull up like a regular double crochet. You'll yarn over, but you'll pull through all 3. So you can see it's creating a bunched effect. So we're going to do that again. Yarn over, find the base of the next stitch. Now be careful because you might think it's down here, but see if I pull this apart, I can see this is where I came in to create that stitch there. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to go in there, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 3. So again, it's already creating that nice bunch look that I want. Okay, so we're going to do that all the way down the side. So the next one is going to be down here. And don't panic if you feel like, wow, that's a long way down. That's totally fine because see, these start to bunch in there like that, and that's what I want. So we're going to do this all the way down the side here into the base of every single stitch until you get to what I will consider the bottom of the bag. And the bottom of the bag is where we have those 9 rows of single crochet stitches only. So what I want you to do is I want you to continue half double crocheting into the base of each stitch right up until that last one before the single crochets. And then I will take you through the next part. Okay, so I'm coming right down to the very last double crochet here. I'm going to insert my hook and finish the half double crochet. I do have to apologize for one thing. I realized that I had said it's all double crochets along the side. It is not, of course, because we are alternating from double crochets to single crochets when we're creating the Alpine stitch. And then, of course, here it's all single crochets. So whenever you come to the row of the single crochet, you just half double 1 into the side of that stitch. So either way, you are doing 1 half double crochet into the side of each stitch, whether it's a single crochet or a double. That's still going to create that slightly bunching effect along the side. Now we've gotten to the bottom, what I'm calling the bottom of the bag here. So this is where I have 9 rows of single crochet stitches. So what I want to do is I actually am going to create a decrease stitch here. So I'm going to go back into this same stitch here, pull through like a half double crochet, but then I'm going to yarn over and go into the very next stitch or the side of the very next stitch and pull through again. So I'm basically going to have 5 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of them. Okay, so this is going to create a decrease, and it should kind of bunch in the corner of my bag there. That's exactly what I want to have happen. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue doing regular half double crochets across the side here. So I'm going to yarn over and into the next stitch, so not this one because that's part of the decrease. I'm going to go into the base of this or the side of that stitch there. These are going to be tricky to see, so there's going to be a lot of trial and error. And I'm going to create a half double crochet there. Okay, I'm going to do that again into the side of the next stitch, half double crochet. One more time, into the side of this stitch. Sometimes they are a chain one, sometimes they're a full stitch. Whoops. Okay, so you can see now that this decrease really pinched in the corner of my bag here. Or maybe you can't see it just yet, but actually, yeah, you should be able to see that. See how it's kind of coming in? So you're going to do that all the way till you get to here, which is the last stitch. And I'm actually going to just go ahead and do this with you since we're almost there. So just 1/2 double crochet into the side of each stitch all the way across. And I'm just coming up to the last one here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a decrease just like I did in the other corner. So this is the corner. I'm going to yarn over, take the side of the next stitch, which is going up the side now, pull through, and pull through all 5, which could be tricky, of these stitches. So see, this is kind of creating the, so you should see this is going to kind of create the bend, and then you have a definite bottom of your bag. And then I'm just going to continue up the side and do what I was doing before. I'm just going to go into the side of each stitch, whether it's a double or whether it's a single, and just half double crochet. Okay, and I'm almost up at the end here. So I am going to do one more half double crochet, and that should give me, so one thing, let me just take this out. So I should have 22 stitches down the side of my bag up until I get to that decrease corner. Now, I went back and put stitch markers in here, and I have to apologize. I'm terrible for using these because I like doing a lot of the counting in my head, and I kind of can see where I am. But if you're a little bit inexperienced and still a bit, fairly new at crochet, definitely use the stitch markers. It just makes life a whole lot easier. So my stitch markers are in the bottom corners of the bag, and that's where I did the decrease stitch. So if I pull my stitches apart, you should be able to see that these two are brought together, and then this loop belongs to this decrease here. So when I worked the half double crochets up the side of my bag, so if I did that, I now have 22 stitches on each side, and you really want to try and make sure that they stay nice and even now. Now that you've got one row of stitches, it should be much easier to find these stitches now. So we started from here, 22 stitches. I did a decrease in the corner. I went straight across, and between each stitch marker, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then don't forget I have 2 decreases here and a decrease of 2 stitches there. So there's 5 straight stitches between the stitch markers, okay? And then I continued up, and I have 22 stitches along the side. So now what I need to do is I need to, remember how back here, this is the top part of my bag when we decreased every 7th stitch. We are now, so we've worked down the side of this side. Now we're up along the top of the next side. Okay, so this is basically going to be the opening of our bag right here. And so we're now going to proceed to do the same thing. We're going to start the row. Let me just tighten that up there. We're going to start the row with a decrease, and then we're going to proceed to decrease into every 7th stitch, and we're only going to use single crochets here. Now, one thing to take note is this is the top of the bag, but it is actually the bottom of your original work. So you'll probably notice, if I can get my camera to focus here, so you probably notice that it seems a bit tighter here. So if I turn that, you can see this was my original chain stitches at the very beginning. So don't worry if it feels different. It is different because it's different. So you're going to chain 1. And remember, you're going to go back into that same stitch and pull through. Okay. And then you are going to go into the very next stitch. Just might take some checking out here. There we go. So you can see that that was the first chain there. You're going to pull through 3 loops on your hook and pull through all 3. So we've come around the corner and we've done a decrease. Now we're going to do 6 single crochets. 1 single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches across. Ay, that's a tongue twister. So I'm going to find my next stitch. So it's not that one because I just worked into it. Very next one will be here. And so I want to make sure to get both loops here. Pull through. And remember, for this project, we're using 2 strands. We're using the thicker strand and then this really fine one. So make sure you're always catching them both and working as one. Okay, so that's 2. 3. Okay, so now so you can see that's creating a nice finished look here. Now we're in the 7th stitch, so we're going to insert, pull through, but we're not going to resolve. Into the very next stitch, we insert again, pull through, and now we will resolve all 3 stitches. Okay, so that's what we're going to do all the way across. 6 single crochets and then a decrease in 7 and 8. 6 single crochets, decrease in 7 and 8 till you get to this corner here. And then we're going to pick back up with half double crochets along the side and creating our corners in the bottom of the bag like we did on the other side. Okay, go ahead and finish along the top and I'll take you through the next corner. Okay, here we go. We have come up to our corner, done our last stitch here. Now we're going to start working along the sides of the bag here. So we're going to yarn over. Whoops. Okay, so here's the short tail from the beginning of our work. So we're going to try and work over this. Okay, so if you want, you can just wait till the end and sew it in after. I kind of like working over it as I go. So I'm going to yarn over, back into that same stitch. I'm going to pull through because remember, we're rounding the corner here. So there we go. Okay, and now into the side of every stitch, whether it's a single crochet or a double, we're going to do a half double. And sorry, I'm going to do that into the base of every stitch. So this looks like, and remember, some of them were chain 3s and some of them were actual stitches. So just be patient, take your time. See, that's a great example. That's a chain 3, so the base of that for me would be right there. Don't worry if it feels like there's a big gap there, because see, it starts bunching them all in. And I'm going to do that again. So this is the base of that stitch is right there. And really, you can kind of figure this out as you go along. Just keep in mind that we want the same count on each side. So on the other side of my bag, I had 22 stitches on each side before I got to the corner. So as long as you're even in the number of stitches on each side, you are a-okay. So go ahead and do your half double crochets, and then I'll meet you again just at the base when we're rounding out the bottom corner of our bags, and we'll make sure to put some stitch markers there as well this time. Okay. Okay guys, so we are coming up to that bottom corner again. So remember, we are going to insert, so that's the first stitch there. We're going to insert as usual for a half double crochet, but we're not going to resolve it. We'll then yarn over, go into the side of the next stitch, which is going to be right there. Pull through, so you're going to have 5 loops all together now. You'll yarn over, and now we're going to pull through all of these loops. So we're basically, can be a little bit tricky, basically snuggling these together, and that's what's going to create the corner of the bag there. And this time, right off the bat, I'm going to place a stitch marker there. Then it's much easier to see and I don't have to worry about digging for it. Now into each of the next 5, because remember on the other side we had 5, we're going to do 5 half double crochets. So here is 1. Here's the base of the next one. Sorry guys, the camera is really having a mind of its own. Next one is right here. So that's the 3rd one. Here is the 4th one. And this is, yep, I'm on track. This is the 5th one right here. And then this, yeah, this is the corner here. So we're going to insert, place through, and now go into the side of the next one. So that's coming up there. Pull through. Sorry guys, I messed that up. So if you look at the bottom of the bag here, this will now be the last one here. So you're going to yarn over, and I'm just going to actually go into this space here. Pull through, yarn over, and go into the base of the very next stitch. Pull through. So again, I'm going to have 5 loops, yarn over, and you have to be very delicate because we have 2 yarns here, so one of them is quite fine. So I just gently massage my way through. And there we go. So now we've got the other corner of the bottom of the bag there, okay? And I am going to now go into the base of the next stitch and do a half double crochet. This is where things start getting solidified. And then I'm going to go back here because now I can identify that is my decrease stitch. So I'm going to place a stitch marker right in there. So now I'm good to go. I've got my 5 stitches in between. And now I'm going to work up the side of this last side here of the bag to meet up where I started the original decrease. So that is 1 half double crochet into the side, or into the base of the side of each stitch. And I want to make sure I have an even number. So again, for me, I'm going to make sure I have 22. You might have 23, you might have 21. That's okay too. As long as they're all equal. That's the main thing we want to keep in mind. All right, guys, so I've come up to the side here. I made sure that I had 22 stitches. So I had to undo it a couple of times because sometimes we do extra stitches in here. And the main thing is you want an equal stitch count. So I made sure that it looks somewhat even and that I have 22 stitches. I've got my stitch markers with 5 stitches in between and another 22 stitches. So now I've got that one round all the way around my bag done. So what did we do? Along the top opening of our bag, what we have done is we have done 6 single crochets, and decreased the 7th and 8th stitch together, all along the top. So we started with a decrease, we single crocheted 6 stitches and then decrease, 6 stitches, decrease. And we did that all the way across, and we did our last 6 stitches here. Then we worked down the sides of these stitches with half double crochets. And we worked into the sides of these stitches. Some of them are double crochets, some of them are single crochets. So again, it's going to be a little bit testy for you, but just make sure that whatever your desired height, which in my case, if you followed me exactly, I have 22 stitches down the side. I then decreased just where the 9 rows of single crochets begin, 2 together. So that's going to create that corner there. So in the base of the last side stitch and into the first single crochet, it should decrease. Then into the side of each single crochet, I did 1/2 double across the way. That gave me 5 stitches. I then decreased that last stitch into the side of the next stitch going up. So between each of these stitch markers, I'm going to have 5 stitches here, 5 half double crochets. Then I proceeded the same way up the sides of all of these stitches with a half double crochet, making sure that I had my 22 stitches. That brings me up to the other side, so I do the same thing, 1 single crochet. So the tops are always single crochets, the sides are always half doubles. It's just what I decided to do. So decrease 6 stitches, decrease 6 stitches all the way across, and we repeated the side formula. Now, what you're going to continue on to do is you're going to continue working around the tops and the sides again.